I never thought a single piece of information could turn someone's mind into something dangerous. But what Karen did after finding out the truth still doesn't feel real even as I say it now. It all started when she discovered who my dad really was, the judge who had sentenced her. The moment that truth reached her, something inside her snapped in a way I can't fully explain. For days before that, she was just unstable, unpredictable. But after that discovery, she became something else entirely. I still remember the silence right before everything went wrong. The kind of silence that feels too heavy, like the air is holding its breath. And then it happened. Something so unthinkable that even now I replay it in my mind, wondering how one moment can change everything. What she did next wasn't just revenge. It was something far darker. I still can't process it. Before that moment, everything escalated. Karen had already made herself a problem in the neighborhood long before any of this happened. She was the kind of person who turned small HOA disputes into full-blown wars over things most people would ignore. She complained about noise, about pink colors, about parking spots, and even things that didn't belong to her at all. It reached a point where the HOA board had no choice but to take action after one incident crossed the line. She physically confronted a homeowner during a heated argument, and that moment changed everything in court. She didn't show the same confidence she had in the neighborhood. The evidence was overwhelming, and the judge didn't hesitate to impose consequences. Community service, mandatory counseling, and public accountability became her new reality. She was seen sweeping sidewalks in a neon vest while neighbors watched in silence, some even recording it like a reminder of how far she had fallen. What most people didn't know was that my dad, the judge who handled her case, stayed completely out of sight, and I never mentioned his role to anyone, because peace was all I wanted. At least for a little while. Everything changed the day Karen found out the truth about my dad. I don't know exactly how she discovered it, whether she dug through records or followed me long enough to piece it together, but the moment it clicked in her mind, something inside her shifted in a way I had never seen before. She started acting differently almost immediately, as the world had personally betrayed her. At first, there was silence, then messages, then accusations that made no logical sense at all. She began saying that my father and I had ruined her life together on purpose. From that point on, she didn't see us as people anymore, but as enemies in her mind. And the worst part was how fast that obsession took over everything she did next. It was like watching someone rewrite reality just to justify their anger. She stopped focusing on punishment and started focusing entirely on revenge against us. Every small action she took after that felt calculated, like she was building towards something I couldn't yet see. That was when I realized this wasn't just anger anymore. It was something far more dangerous, already moving toward a point of no return right now. After that, things didn't calm down. They got worse every single day. Karen started showing up in ways that made no sense at all. It began with small things, like standing across the street and just watching. But soon it turned into late-night knocking that no one would admit to hearing. Sometimes I'd wake up and feel like someone had been outside my window for hours. Then came the accusations, shouted in parking lots and whispered through messages. She claimed I was helping my father control her life from behind the scenes. None of it made sense, but the confidence in her voice made it unsettling. And then I saw the notebook. It was always in her hand, filled with names, notes, and strange symbols. My name was underlined more than once, as if she were building a case. That's when I realized she wasn't just angry, she was planning something. And I started noticing her everywhere, even when she wasn't supposed to be there. It felt like reality itself was shrinking around me. I tried ignoring it, telling myself it would pass like any other HOA drama. But deep down, I knew this wasn't normal anymore. Something inside her had locked onto me, and it wasn't letting go. And that was the moment I stopped feeling safe, even inside my own home. Because no matter how quiet the night got, I could still feel her watching, waiting. Like something terrible was getting closer without making a sound now. That weekend felt like a breath of fresh air I didn't even realize I needed. It was my birthday, and for once, everything seemed normal again. My dad came over like he always used to, carrying small gifts and that calm energy that made everything feel steady. We spent the afternoon together like old times, talking, laughing, grilling food in the backyard as if nothing in the world had ever gone wrong. For a few hours, I almost forgot about Karen completely. The neighborhood looked peaceful, almost innocent, like it had no idea what kind of storm had been building underneath it. But then I noticed her. Across the street, standing still, watching. She wasn't moving, just observing every step my dad took, like she was memorizing him. There was something different in her expression this time. Not anger exactly, but patience, like she was waiting for the right moment. I tried to ignore it and focus on the day, but every time I looked up, she was still there. At one point, I heard her mutter something under her breath. Something that sounded like, "We'll see about that." And even though I pretended not to hear it, those words stuck with me longer than anything else that day. Everything changed in a single moment that my mind still refuses to process. 1 second, I was standing next to my dad, feeling safe for the first time in days, and the next, everything turned into chaos. I heard footsteps rushing behind us before I even had time to turn around. That's when I saw Karen. Her face completely changed, holding something heavy in her hands. Before I could react, she moved forward, and everything happened too fast to understand clearly. My dad fell, and for a moment, the world went silent in a way I will never forget. I screamed his name and tried to reach him, but my body felt like it wasn't responding properly. Karen turned toward me, and I realized she wasn't stopping, no matter what I said or did. I tried to protect myself, but she kept coming closer, and the panic in my chest exploded. Everything around me felt unreal as neighbors started shouting and running toward the scene. I remember voices, movement, sirens in the distance, but mostly the feeling that nothing would ever be the same again. Everything after that moment became a blur of panic, confusion, and people trying to pull everything back from falling apart. I just stood there, unable to think, unable to breathe properly, realizing my life had split into before and after in the worst possible way. And in that moment, I knew nothing in my world would ever return to normal again after Karen's attack now. Within minutes, the entire street was filled with flashing lights and shouting voices as police arrived and immediately took control of the scene. Officers separated everyone, secured the area, and moved straight toward Karen, who was still holding the weapon and screaming incoherently. My dad was rushed away by paramedics while neighbors stood frozen, giving statements that painted a clear picture of everything she had been doing for weeks. The notebook was recovered, filled with names, accusations, and detailed plans that left investigators stunned at the level of obsession involved. By the time everything was collected, the charges against Karen had already begun stacking into something the police described as overwhelming. In court, prosecutors detailed every incident from harassment to premeditated violence, while witnesses confirmed how far her behavior had escalated. The judge ultimately delivered a long sentence including decades in prison, a mandatory psychiatric evaluation, and a permanent ban from the HOA community. As she was taken away, she continued shouting about conspiracies, but no one in the courtroom believed her anymore. After everything had settled, I was left standing there, realizing how quickly life can change when obsession replaces reason. And even now, I keep asking myself whether justice truly feels like closure when you have seen how far things can go. But one thing is certain. The moment Karen made her choice, there was no path left that didn't lead to consequences. And maybe that is the lesson buried beneath everything that happened here today. Thank you for watching.